Hello everybody, this is Craig here, and this video is about how to link a Visual Studio project to a GIT source repository in the cloud. So, first step is to create the repository in the cloud. We do that by going to our online Visual Studio or TFS account, as I've done here, and select New Project. I select New Project. I'll give the project a project name, or I prefer the term repository name. So in line with the standards that we're being taught, my project name consists of my name, Craig Willett, and in this case, project name Fire Bootcamp is what I'm using here. Fire Bootcamp as the project. I have opportunity to put a description in there. The next thing I can do is select the process template. The repository service provides us with a number of process templates to support collaborative programming, and for the purposes of this video we will be using the Agile Scrum template, which of course allows us to put our lovely backlogs and other requirements that the Scrum process requires. Lastly, I can select which version control to use, and in this case we're going to use the GIT version control system because it's really cool and Linux people use it. So I'll now create that project. This will create our repository in the cloud. It does take a little bit of time, so we'll just have to think beautiful thoughts whilst the cloud scaffolds us a nice new repository. So that's in progress. It's like watching paint dry. And there we have it. We now have the project is created, and your team is going to absolutely love this. So a good bit of humor from our friends at Microsoft. Now going to the Visual Studio IDE, the next thing we have to do is we have to link the cloud repository with our local repository on the hard disk. Now before I started this video, I had created a directory called Data Craig Willett on the hard disk. We put that data directory directly under the C drive just for clarity and for neatness, so it doesn't get caught up in the default the default programs folder, and it makes it very easier for us to place this repository on a different drive, for instance, away from the registries, etc., etc. Okay, so we now need to connect this local repository to the global repository, and we do that via the Team Explorer as opposed to the Solution Explorer. So what we have to do is we have to connect to our account in TFS, and we connect. I'll now select my cloud instance, and we just wait for it to connect. I select Team Projects, and you can see now that the system is now checking what team projects I have on my cloud account. And you'll see all the ones I have listed there. For the purposes of this exercise, of course, we'll use the Fire Bootcamp team project, which I've just created. So I'll now connect to that, and we'll see there some information from the UI. Now the most important thing about using GIT as your version control tool is it has both a local and a cloud component. So we need to clone those two together initially, and there we have a clone repository option in the IDE. So I click on that, and I have the URL for my cloud instance, and I need to then map that to a local drive. So what I'll do here is I'll just tidy up the local drive or local directory name to be data craigwillett.firebootcamp. So I'll just clone that now, and all that just means they make each other aware of each other. So this is especially important if you were to join into an existing project. And that pushes everything down, and that's now done, and the repository has been made and linked, and we're now ready to do a bit of coding. So I can feel the awesomeness building. I'm getting cooler and cooler. I'll have icicles on my fingers by the end of this video. I'll probably be so cool I can buy a motorbike and put Win8 number plates on it. So next thing to do is actually start a project to use this repository. So I'll start a new project, and I will make it an MVC project. I will call the project in line with standards that we're being taught. Craig W, which is the developer's name, dot the solution, which we will be calling Getting Started. So it's the Getting Started solution. And this element will be the web UI. I'll just modify the other components here. Now, one thing I noticed, and just be aware of this, fellow viewers or listeners, is that on Visual Studio Express, this location field sometimes defaults back to program / Visual Studio / data blah blah, or uses Craig W / documents / projects. So just be aware of that. Make sure this location maps to your local repository, otherwise you will be in a world of pain. So there's a trap for young players there. But as you can see in my example, I've mapped the location of my project to the local repository under data Craig Willett, etc. Fire Bootcamp. So that corresponds to the team project on TFS, Team Foundation Service, or online Visual Studio, which is probably the more appropriate term in the modern era. Lastly, the solution name is just Getting Started. So I have a solution name, the name of the project, which is the solution name dot the project name, and the location of my repository. So if I click OK, that all should start to scaffold. And again, like watching paint dry, we shall watch Visual Studio scaffold a project. But whilst this is a little bit boring to watch, it's very nice to know that a lot of this work is now done for me in terms of my development, having all this great scaffolding to allow controllers and viewers to interact without me having to write any code. So we should all be very grateful for that. And there it goes. I'm not sure if this is as exciting as watching paint dry or as exciting as watching grass grow. I'll let the viewers decide. That was quite fast this time. My computer must have woken up. So we now have a brand new ASP.NET MVC project, and now I'll go to the Solution Explorer because I need to deal with issues of the solution. And we have our lovely little files there. You'll notice here these pluses attached to the various files and code for the project, and these pluses tell me from looking at the hover that it's a pending add. They're pending to be added to the repository, so we will add those. So clicking on to the project, I say again, clicking onto the solution, I have a commit option now, which will commit to the local repository. And it's very important here to realize that with Git we have a two-stage approach to checking in code. We have to check in code locally, and then we have to sync our local repository to the global repository. And it's extremely important that you always keep your local repository in sync, because otherwise you could end up in merge hell, and we don't want to be in merge hell, because then we will be in lots of trouble. So I'll just hit commit, and the system starts to play, and I need to enter, of course, a comment about why I'm committing, and this is going to be my initial commit. Initial commit. and I can't spell, so I don't want Mr. Kogan to see that little piece of poor written English. So initial commit, neatness counts. That's our initial commit, so I'll now commit that. But before I commit, I'll just show you people out there that Microsoft has been very good to us, and they've combined in the commit button the options just to commit locally, the options to commit and push your changes out to the cloud, or the option to commit and sync, so you make sure that you are up to date with the global repository or the cloud repository at the same time. So I think it's always good practice to use commit and sync, so I'm going to apply that, and bang, it goes. And what this will do is send all the code up to the cloud, and if anybody else has changed something in the project, I will get those changes as well. So I believe it's always important to, at this point in our careers, commit and sync at the same time. So again, we'll watch this operation take place, and now it's syncing, so we're pulling the current branch down, and that takes a little bit of time. So I think this is by watching paint dry, but it's actually a bit faster than the rehearsal, so that's a good thing. So we're now pushing our code up to the repository. Of course, one of the traps for young players, if you keep committing locally without syncing to the cloud, other people won't see your changes, and it might break things later on. So in the world of DevOps, if you haven't got your changes in the cloud solution, it won't be picked up during automatic build, and you then become unpopular later on because you've broken things without people knowing. So we'll just keep waiting now for the operation to push the code to the global repository to complete, and that's what is being indicated where my pointer is on that blue dialog. Actually, this is more exciting than watching paint dry. At least I'm seeing something happen. But if you are a bit nervous about what's going on, I would suggest looking at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. You can actually see the output from the source control to see what's happening, and that can give you some options sometimes if you see any errors there. And it doesn't look to be too upset because it's seen that we have a repository on my local disk. So we'll just wait for this to occur. Of course, the question people are asking is, why haven't I paused the video? And the reason for that is I'm running inside a virtual machine, and it can cause me a bit of confusion with the GUI switching between virtual machines and trying to shut off the recording. So I'll just let it ride for a little bit longer. The other option is, as I get better at this, I can do the live presentation to disk, and later on edit that MP4 video with some decent video software, but that's something for some more private study. Whilst we're waiting, I'll just inspect what's going on with my local repository, and you'll see here local repository has been created. There's the craigw.getting started solution. Under that solution is the first of hopefully many projects, and the project is the web UI project, and in there are all the code elements. And it's done, it's finished. So the paint's now finally dried. You can see where my cursor is, that I've successfully synchronized incoming and outgoing commits. So quite pleased about that. Now, do we believe that? And I do, but I want to prove to you out there in the audience that it has occurred. So we'll now go back to the online Visual Studio, and I'll now browse through the projects to see if the code's there. So I'll go browse where my cursor is, and up will come lists of the team projects I have, and there's two. So CraigWillett.fire bootcamp is what we want to look at, so I'll click on that and I'm going to navigate towards that. So again, watching the cursor, I'm navigating to it, and it takes me to the home page, if you will, of the Fire Bootcamp project, and you can see I've got various options for work, build, test and code. At this stage we're interested in code, so I click on code and I'll see an X tree-like or a tree-like display of my code. Assuming I clicked the right thing, so let's do that again. I had to click code up here. These dialogues down here are actually the how-tos, so neatness counts, and I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble from my instructor for doing that. And here is a list of all the codes. You can see the top level is the team project, the next level is the solution name, beneath that will be the project name, which is, I'll just adjust the window, which is Web UI. I click on Web UI and I'll have all the code. You can see all the code is present. We'll click on the views because they're probably the easiest to use for an example. So I'll use the index view, which is the default view in the home page, and we just wait a moment. And one of the awesomeness, coolest, sickest, raddest features of the Microsoft implementation of TFS is I can actually view the code at the cloud, so there's the code there. And the last thing I'd like to do is a little bit of extra, and I'll make a change to the default view and be able to track that in TFS. So let's just do that now for some final bits of extra awesomeness. So I'm going to now just quickly edit the index view, and I'll just change some text here to indicate that Fire Bootcamp is awesome, or I love Fire Bootcamp. I've just managed to destroy the header format, so I'll just go back a moment and place correctly some additional text. As a very junior, inexperienced HTML programmer, I beg forgiveness for there. So I'll just leave the lead in there. That was naughty of me to delete that. So I'll just delete the displayed text. And I'll put in I love Fire Bootcamp. So yes sir, I love it. So I'll just compile that, save it, and as you can see in the indications in the project window, there's a little red mark against index to indicate that it's been modified, not been saved, and not been committed. So just up comes my new web page where I've done the editing. And we'll watch some more paint dry whilst the local instance of IIS fires up to display my web page. I'm running out of grass to watch grow, but that's life. And whilst you people can't see this, I'm looking at the light on the hard disk and it's wearing away, so stuff's happening. And there we see it. I love Fire Bootcamp, so I have actually edited that file. I'll now just make sure that file's saved, so I'll save it. Save view HTML index.cshtml, so I've just saved that. I then go back to the Solution Explorer, and you'll see there's a little tick there, a little red tick against that piece of code, and you can see if I hover over it, it says pending edit, so let's make sure it's saved. And it's saved. And that should now, I'll need to commit that. So I hit the solution, do a commit. This should be very quick because I've only got one file this time. And in this case, the comment will be edited homepage. So it's a comment which will go into the records. I'll do a commit and sync. And this should be very, very quick, we hope. And it looks pretty good. And successful, everything is awesomeness. If I go back to the Solution Explorer, I can see that index view has now been successfully checked in. It's got the little icon, the blue icon next to it with a lock. So it's checked in and locked. So if I want to just explain to the project manager what I was doing, I can go into my code. If I go back to the display of the code, I can select index. I'll just select index there. Home. Index, you can see that I've only checked it in a minute ago, as opposed to the others which were checked in 10 minutes ago, and you'll see that the comment indicates the comments from the latest commit which applied to that file, so that these about and contact files were part of the initial commit, and index has been updated in my latest commit, which was the edited homepage commit. So finally I'll click onto that file just to show you some awesome funky sickness with Git. And one of the awesome things about Git is I can look and do a compare very easily online. So I click the compare button, and you can see this commit versus the current, so the previous versus the current, and you can see it's highlighted the changes. So the red stuff was deleted and the green stuff was added. And very quickly I can see that all I did there was made a change to one of the headers. So gentlemen, this is how you can very easily implement Git with Visual Studio. So I thank you for your patience and your attendance.